Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Deacon Box, if you don't have to leave, our brother David has a testimony that he wants to share real quick. I'm going to give him space to do that real quickly at this time. All right.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord. Last week, Pastor said he has an instrument. It's his voice. We all have an instrument. It's our voices, and that we should use it. The time is now. I want to tell you a little story. I hope you have a few minutes. It won't be long. And it may sound like a story of one man's journey or of universal forces, but it's a story about us. See, a few months ago, Casey and I went down to Paducah, Kentucky, for the eclipse. We were chasing eclipses. And while we were down there, waiting for the sun to be obstructed by the moon, a young girl noticed that I was sitting on the grass in prayer and meditation, and she was curious about that. So she came up to me, and she asked me what I was doing, and she asked me about my prayer beads. And we began to talk. She said that she studies things, and she had some questions. And she wanted to know if she could email me sometimes and ask a question because of things that caught her interest. I said, well, if your parents say it's okay, it's all right. So we walked over. Her parents were camped right next to us with their cameras. We had our cameras. A lot of people had theirs. And I became friends with them. Her mother's a Methodist minister. And we're friends on Facebook, and her father and I are connected on LinkedIn. And lo and behold, some weeks later, she sent me a question. Her first question was about something. I gave her an answer. And her next question in her next email was about magic. And I had to think about that. Magic. And I realized that I had an answer for her. I had an answer for her because of this church. So I wrote an email. I printed it out, gave it to Ellen Kim, the pastor, and I asked, would it be appropriate to read to you? Because it's our story. And they said yes. And so, by your patience, I'd like to read that letter to you right now. It's just an email. I changed your name to Faith. Dear Faith, thank you for your question about magic. Many things are called magic, and magic is only one of them. What do we mean by magic in the spiritual realm? I am not referring to parlor tricks like pulling a rabbit out of the hat or making 2 balls turn into 3 or 4. Magic is in the energy world comes in 2 forms, dark magic and light magic. Both are real. One is lesser, the other is great. Dark magic comes in various forms that usually involve imposing one's will on somebody else. This can be relatively small and simple, such as trying to influence someone to do what you want them to. It can also be terrible and drastic. People have explored black magic with the attempt to bring great harm or worse to another person. It usually involves manipulating earthly energies or dark forces to focus on a target, and the target is another living being. Light magic is greater, seemingly unlimited in power, and it comes from source. It manifests for the purpose of helping, not hurting others. In rare situations, it can appear suddenly to change events and outcomes with miraculous results. It may arrive unexpected, without being summoned, and move in mysterious ways. In other situations, magic can come into place through someone who acts as a vessel to bring it forth when needed. These saints or ordinary beings may seem like miracle workers when it happens. Someone may be healed or a crisis averted. But know this, these vessels of great things are not magicians. They're servants. The magician is the one you will not see. The magician in such things is a force that is greater and outside of ourselves. The mix is that we can be exposed to encountering both dark and light magic in our everyday lives, and we can be attracted to both. Therein lies the choice. One force comes from darkness, it is negative, and it separates people adversely. The greater force comes from light. this would be an appropriate time to mention the plurality of what we describe as good and evil. Good is better, good is greater, and the right choice is good, and God is good. Although I had experiences where dark magic was present, and I walked through situations where I had to defend myself, I choose not to describe those encounters at this time. If I ever perceive you to be in danger, I may tell you of these things if it is appropriate to do so. Right now, I wish to tell you of something else. I wish to share with you one of the many experiences I had with light magic. It is a story with a happy ending. One man's miracle with magic comes from my own story. It is a story of healing. When I was quite young, about 18 months old, I had an incident that injured my spine in 2 places. The spinal injuries were not severe at the time, and they did not prevent me from learning to walk. In fact, I went on to live a normal life, play basketball, and work construction jobs that involved hard labor. Over the years, I would occasionally have a bout of back pain that prevented me from working for a day or two, but I would always pass and I would go back to work. One day, however, the injury from my childhood struck me in such a way that it would not pass so easily. 11 years ago, I developed severe back pain that left me nearly crippled. I could not walk without a cane, and sometimes I would have to crawl up the stairs. My income at the time was earned in part by construction and the rest by computer. I had to give up physical work entirely and switch to computer work full time. When I went to the doctors, I found out how bad it really was. 3 of the 4 doctors that examined me figured out that this was from a childhood injury, and x-rays revealed the damage. My spine was afflicted in 2 places where the discs were damaged and the vertebrae were too close together. This happened in my lower back and in my neck. It had been not been a problem before because the damaged discs deteriorated slowly over time. When they deteriorated to the point that the vertebrae they separated got too close together, this caused pinched nerves and muscle spasms, and it was extremely painful and debilitating. I could barely walk. Months of physical therapy followed. I could still walk with a cane and drive a car, but occasionally muscle spasms would stop me cold or wake me up screaming in the middle of the night. Constant pain developed, and that had gotten worse. Doctors told me that this condition wouldn't get any better. It would slowly get worse. I had to face the notion that one day I would wind up with a neck brace and a wheelchair. Despite all odds, I kept looking forward. Hebrews 11. Thank you, Pastor. So, dear Faith, why was I not walking with a cane when you met me? Therein lies a miracle and the magic in my life. Divine grace came in unexpected ways. Stacy and I bought the house in which we lived 14 years ago. The man who built the house and lived in it sold the house to us. Occasionally, he would come by and visit. We knew him as Mr. Norton, and we liked him very much. The house in which we live is not the only thing Mr. Norton built. He was one of the men that built a house of worship in our town. This is the church he loved very much and attended every Sunday. On one of his visits to us, Mr. Norton invited us to come to his church for a sermon. That proved to be a fateful decision. The church is Greater Works Ministries, just 3 miles from our home. Casey and I went to church and attended a sermon. It was conducted by Pastor Avery, who we loved immediately. She can bear testimony to that, what I said, while we're sitting here together in the pews. As we have loved the church ever since. We began attending every Sunday sermons regularly, and after a while we became involved. Today, Tacy is one of the trustees. I work in the multimedia ministry. It is here at Greater Works Ministries that magic came in the form of a miracle. During one sermon, our pastor held an altar call. That's when he calls deacons and other leaders up to the front of the church and asks members of the congregation who are in need of prayer to come and join the leaders. Some members then rise from the pews and approach. With my back being as it was, I thought I should do the same. So I approached for prayer. As I arrived to the front of the church, pastor asked me what I wished for. I asked for healing of my back, said I. 4 deacons soon surrounded me and laid their hands on my back and my shoulders. Pastor laid his hands on top of my head and began praying out loud. The deacons joined Pastor in prayer, and soon they were all speaking aloud to the Lord, sounding praises and asking for healing. They prayed for my back. They prayed for healing. They called upon grace, and in the name of Jesus, one of the deacons placed one of his hands on the exact spot where my neck was injured, and his other hand on the exact spot where my lower back was injured. That was interesting because I never told anyone in the church where my back was hurt. And as prayer went on, I felt it. Power came from this group energy. It was a power that I could feel, sense, and even see with my mind's eye. A force began to run through my body. It was like a river running downward within me, taking a shower on the inside, only it was a river of energy. I could feel the force enter my body, run through me, then continue to flow out of the soles of my feet. It was a continuous flowing run of energy. Then during all of this, one deacon, who placed his hands on the exact spot of my injuries, began to run heat through my body. I could sense force coming down through the top of his head, running through his body and passing through his hands into my injured spine. Where stood a circle of souls in prayer inside the house of worship was a joyful noise to the Lord in petitionary prayer. A great magic was taking place. It was a magic that would stay with me forever. You see, my dear faith, from that day forward, I never had significant pain in my back again. I am healed. Today, I walk normally, move normally, and I live in freedom. How can it be that your magic happens? That which created you sustains you. For where 2 or more gathered in his name, there he is with them. As you learn of your abilities and discover what you can do, dear faith, consider carefully what it is you will do. Our freedom of will shall never be taken from us. Remember that harm comes not only from those who overestimate their power and overreact, it also comes from those who underestimate their power and overreact. We live by universal law of action, reaction, response. We are left to choose wisely or poorly. Remember also that great blessings come from anyone and they come from everyone. We are all equal, we are all loved, and we are all one. That choice was made for us a long time ago by the greatest force of all, the one who loves us. Choose the God who loves you, and you choose your own realization. That is the greatest magic of all. Deacon Box, this letter is dedicated to you. See, you're the deacon who had his hands on my spine where it was injured. You're the deacon that ran the power of God. And I've never really told you what you mean to me and how much you have changed my life. As Pastor said, a lot of people admire you for a lot of reasons. You're a good family man, you're a state trooper, you're a great deacon in the church. But to me, you're like the sun. You're like light. And Sister Wendy was attracted to that light. Sister Wendy is that light. She was that light before she was born. She shared that light with us while she was here. And she is that light now. And I just wanted to do what Pastor says we should do. I'm going to use my instrument to let you know that you have been a light for me. God bless you. Deacon Box. And I love you.
Amen. God is good. Amen. Nothing wrong with encouraging one another.